Thank you for the invitation. It was a great pleasure to welcome Mr. President here in Lviv not so long ago. So I'm glad that our dialogue continues and that all of you really are willing to stay aware of the context of Ukrainian situation by this direct involvement. So yeah, one of the challenges I took before this meeting was in what way may my contribution be valuable? Because the previous speakers were really great with presenting us with the official position of their churches and the guidelines that their churches take to respond to the situation. But I think that my profile is more about this local response. Because as it was mentioned in the presentation, our NGO, it works with social ministry of the church, but it does so like starting bottom down. What we do is training and funding and leadership development programs for local priests, pastors, and well, church leaders. And the scale can be even that little as the village of 200 people. So yeah, this local leadership is the principal thing for us. But as the war started, what it highlighted was that local leadership isn't about like a smaller scale. It is rather about a deepness of your immersion in the local context. And that is what is really helping now. So when the full-scale aggression started on the 24th of February, our organization took the approach of empowering these local leaders rather than like building from scratch some solutions. So yeah, I will reflect on what the leaders, the pastors, the priests, the lay people do locally. And we'll do so following some of your questions that you present us, but not all of them, because I'm quite talkative, so 3 questions will be more or less enough for 10 minutes. So yeah, the humanitarian response. As I said about this local leadership, it really plays out uniquely in this situation and shows how the church can have exceptional capacity in providing humanitarian response. I will probably explain it with the story as the following questions as well. Because one of really exceptional teams that we support is the team in Mariupol. And since the beginning of full-scale aggression, they managed to get more than 1,300 people from their city. And well, from the data we have, it's probably the biggest scale evacuation from this city. And their success can be explained by my definition of the people we work with, the definition of local church leaders. So local leaders is about this local context that I told you about, because this Mariupol team, their previous experience was with the drug-addicted children. So you can imagine what it can tell about their network. So that's like criminal leaders, local authorities, and all kind of people, really. So now they can get to the places that, well, exceptional people can access. But with their network, with their connectedness, they are the ones that are capable of doing that. But that's about local leadership. And what church leadership gives us, that they're really selfless, because what they do poses them at huge risk. And for you to understand, one of the biggest problems they have now is that once they go to Ukraine, like to the free territories, to get some humanitarian aid for the Mariupol, they cannot get back to their city because Ukrainian military won't let them in. Because it's like, it's too dangerous, guys, we cannot guarantee your safety. But the response that the Ukrainian military gets from our like Protestant church team as well. Of course, you cannot guarantee our safety, but who will do the job if you won't let us in? So yeah, this decisiveness and doing the job that is in any way about you, but about other people, what drives them as the church values. So that's about the uniqueness the church has in humanitarian response. The next thing you wondered about was the ministries and programs that church starts as a response to war. So more long-term solutions. And actually, what I admire the most is how churches transform the ministries they were involved in to address the new challenges. And also a story, we have a team in Cherkasy, the UGCC parish, a Greek Catholic parish, who were previously involved in working with disabled children. So they had rehabilitation team, the lay person who is a psychologist, and she later on involved also a medical person and judicial person to work with those kids. And now what they do is using their expertise, but expanding their target group. So they still work on the rehabilitation, but with, first of all, IDPs, and then with the soldiers who turned disabled as a result of the combat. So yeah, they use their professionalism, but address the new challenges. But what also is important that we see how connectedness to the church makes their impact also unique. Because for you to understand, Cherkasy, where they operate, is a regional center, so quite a big city. But in the whole city, Tatiana, who is our partner, this layperson who started the whole thing, she is the only specialist left with the right qualification as a psychologist to do rehabilitation. Because many people moved away from the city, and the first ones to leave were actually well-off people. So when you have someone really professional, that's the people who have their own car, so they can leave away very quickly. But she stayed because for her it's important to be there when the people need her. So this value foundation plays out here as well. So that's the second subject. And the third one was about ecumenism. And also, I'll explain it with the story. Just this Monday, I was back from the trip to some of the communities we help. Also from Cherkasy that I just told you about. But I had one conversation with Protestant pastor quite connected to ecumenism. What he said to me was, well, anyway, everyone who identifies as a Christian has something in common. And the things we have in common are actually the most important ones. For example, we'll all agree upon the statement that God is love, and that's what really matters. So you see, this wartime ecumenism is all about that, like believing the God is love and spreading this love to the people, and that diminish all the borders we have between us. And I have one precedent with our team in Melitopol. Melitopol is also the city that is occupied. It is close to the sea. And there we worked with also Greek Catholic priest. But as the war started, their community joined efforts with local Protestant church. And it's almost impossible to get any resources in the city. So as we managed to transfer them money, on the mobile banking, what they did was going to their neighbors and buying a pig and some groceries, also through a mobile phone. So that's what they can get. Another thing was transferring them money to pay for the humanitarian aid that got there, but it was kidnapped by Russians, so they were selling it. So yeah, it's really impossible to get anything there, but when they manage to do so, those two communities, they share because each of them have people in need coming to them, but as it's really difficult to help in any way, what they get, they divide among the both communities. And they have a joint charity kitchen, a joint shelter, and every day both of their people together go to the city center to protest against the occupation. And they were together also when the pastor, the leader of the Protestant community, was kidnapped by Russians. So they were trying to resolve this issue in some way. So yeah, the values are the same, and that is what matters in this time. So yeah, basically, when you talk about any response, the church will be present in all the fields because it was there before the full-scale aggression started, and they do it now. For example, one of the interesting directions that is now being evolved, well, church is really involved hugely in youth work in Ukraine. And we have the problem with young people that many of them, the university youth, had to flee from their cities. And now they, well, need some adaptation period. Some of them will re-establish in other universities. But one of the ideas we are elaborating upon now is providing them with somewhat of a gap year, but while making it a period of their integration. So to understand what a gap year, for example, like exchange year in any country can mean to them, it is at least safety, like economical safety and really physical safety. And it can mean that not for them only, but for their families. And of course, it's also about acquiring new skills and even about like believing in future because they will see the prospect they have. So that's the idea that we are currently discussing with our international church partners, because these connections are already there, the opportunities are already there. We shall just direct them accordingly to the new challenges. So those three stories were like window shops, just a precedent. But if you want to discuss any subject deeper, I am sure I will find people in Ukraine that are currently working on that. So yeah, that was my introduction, but I will be glad to discuss anything deeper if you have any questions to me. Thanks a lot.